January 26th, 1564. The Council of Trent establishes an official distinction between Catholics and Protestants, because neither group is willing to get rid of their precious foreskin. Hey, it's revisionist back from the grave.
Yeah, we're still here. For some reason.
In some capacity.
Yeah, we're back from an unplanned hiatus.
Yeah,
for several months.
Yeah, listeners, it's been an adventure of sickness and adults
health.
trying to schedule
It's
things.
really been like a marriage. The good times and bad.
And of course, like any marriage, we haven't been fucking. I'm sorry. That's why. Why am I leading off like this? Why is this the vibe I'm bringing into 2020?
You could tell in the early episodes that we were still fucking, and now you can tell that it's cold.
You can hear it in the voices. Yeah.
You go back and listen to Julius Caesar, and it's like, it's every night.
Well, mainly because we would end each episode by talking about how we were going to fuck that night.
Yeah.
Yeah, listeners, this is just a bump for the back catalog, really. If you're also Steve Vanderploeg is here.
Hi. Hello.
Hi.
It's been longer for me than it has for you.
Yeah, that's accurate.
I'm talking about the podcast.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Look, listeners, we're just joking. We are three sexual beings who have sex. I don't know which is worse of a take, honestly. But we're here. What we do on this show, each episode, we take a topic from history. One person presents the true government-sanctioned version of events, and another person comes up with a batshit crazy alternate version that's as bad as they want to be, baby. Last time on the show was a long fucking time ago, and I fucking forgot who we were talking about. It was a Halloween episode. And so that was fun. But now we are kicking off our miniseries on pirates, the scourge of the high seas.
Arg.
Yeah, arg.
The hooks. Pirates.
Yeah. I'm just planning episodes now around what will give us the most juice for like characters and ad libs, and pirates, baby. Pirates.
Yeah, we burned through it with the arg. I think we're done.
Yeah, I think we're there. I think we got. There's parrots and wooden legs.
Scurvy.
Man, the Spanish Civil War episodes are going to be grim for that.
They like rum. I know pirates like rum.
Sure.
I mean, who doesn't like rum? It's so
they like saying "yo ho ho" before they have a bottle of it.
I like saying "yo ho ho" on the like. That's what I say when I wake up. It's a good way to start any process.
Just like 3 p.m. Yo ho ho. What are we doing?
Ho ho.
It's a jolly greeting for somebody who is likely going to murder you and commit sex crimes against your family.
Yeah, pirates, it turns out, like medieval knights, not actually great people a lot of the time. We're going to get into some who were probably okay.
Not today.
Not today. These are some baddies.
Are there any good pirates historically?
There have been a few who, well, I mean, I guess they're also all sort of mercenaries. So
yeah,
there's some that are better than others.
And
yeah. There are some who like fought colonialism.
The ones who are like trying to get the dog to get the keys on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, those guys are actually really pretty cool.
That's
also Johnny Depp, bad pirate.
Yeah, he's not a good pirate.
No, or human being.
I have never seen the movies, but I have ridden the ride, and I gotta tell you, Johnny Depp, much more handsome in person.
Yeah. Well, he was at one time.
Yeah, I don't know. I
The
don't know about
alcohol has taken a toll.
and he is slowly merging into like the physical resemblance of every character he's ever played.
Yeah, I think nowadays, if he were one of those like wax figurines made in the 1950s on that ride, you couldn't tell the difference. You wouldn't be able to tell anymore.
He's got major Steven Tyler vibes also. It's like Steven Tyler and Ed Scissorhands and like not Jack Reacher, Jack Sparrow all came together into the Fly machine.
And let's throw Hunter S. Thompson in there. Why not?
Just a soupçon of Hunter S. Thompson makes everything weirder. This week we are discussing the Harpe Brothers. Zach, you're doing the true story.
Yep.
And Steve's doing the alternate.
Yeah, they were two harps that were related.
Yeah,
well, we got
harps.
that out of the way.
Yeah, that's a spoiler for the real history.
But Zach, whenever you're ready, take us away.
But how were they related? The answer may shock you because historians are not sure. But yeah, these were two guys. Big Harp, Micaiah, Big Harp was the elder, presumably, of the two. Some of the details. This is going to be a 1700s one, so some of the details are, uncertain and unverifiable, but that's how it goes. He was born Joshua Harp. Big Harp was, and he had a little buddy named Wiley Little Harp, born William Harp. So probably Joshua Micaiah, whatever you want to call him, was a couple years older. The estimate for how old they were when they died ranges from 31 to 51, so 30s to 50s basically. So it's a pretty big,
That's a wild gap, even for the 1700s, when no one knew what year it was at any given moment.
Yeah, and this is also one where these guys were at the time semi-legendary. So, like, there are probably some accounts of savagery and horribleness that are possibly exaggerated.
Sure,
they are pirates.
Yeah. They're also sometimes considered to be America's actual first serial killers. So there you go. That's a hint. Yeah, their childhood, we don't know a lot about them. They were probably from North Carolina, Orange County, North Carolina, the OC.
The OC.
Yeah, the OC that wasn't the Seth Cohen one. Some people think they were maybe cousins and their fathers were brothers, because that's sort of how cousins work.
Yeah, that's one way.
Yeah, that is one potential way to be a cousin. And they were of Scottish heritage. Their father or fathers, whichever, were Scottish, probably. They were, Calvinists, and they were loyal to a little guy named King George III. And their fathers, one of them at least, was known as, a Tory, a loyalist at the time. He was like a known member of that group. During the War of the Regulation.
The first war Warren G fought in, I believe.
Warren G. Harding?
Warren G.
No, Warren G the rapper.
Warren G. Buffett.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Warren G the rapper, who has much less sex than Warren Harding, the president.
Anyway, hopefully he has more sex than Warren G. Harding has now, if he's still alive. But or at least an equivalent amount, if the amount is zero.
Yeah, I mean, I do also hope no one is violating the corpse of Warren Harding.
I don't particularly like Warren G. Harding, but I don't. It's an old body at this point.
Pirates love bones.
Yeah, it'd be a tough sell for anyone. So yeah,
Upsell.
they're even Ed Gein would be like, I have a Best Buy date. But yeah, so obviously their parentage were loyalists. And when the Revolutionary War began, it became a problem for them and or members of their family because of their earlier association with loyalists. They were obviously like kind of considered suspiciously by revolutionary Americans when the Revolutionary War began, and so they joined with the British loyalist side, having no other option but to do so. And they were potentially persecuted and all these things for their previous actions in the War of the Regulation, the most boring name for a war. Yeah, they it was an unpopular thing, obviously, to be a bit of a Tory at the time. They during the Revolutionary War were mercenaries and like worked for the British side and theoretically were involved in what was sometimes called rape gangs. So that's not
no.
good.
A pirate?
That's
no.
Yeah, that's a bad
I
thing.
missed that in my
yeah, there was a captain named Wood who took a shot at one of the Harps allegedly during the Revolutionary War. And at some point they went to the town where old Captain Wood was from and found his daughter, and there was also a fellow named Frank Wood in that group who attacked their platoon, and then went ahead and kidnapped her and made her Big Harp's wife, which was a thing she just was for many years. So that's the kind of folks we're dealing with, to start. Yeah, they were renowned for being pretty brutal during their time serving for the British side in the Revolutionary War. They were kind of loosely associated with official militia because they're those kind of guys where the militia's like, we can't really be on the up and up with these kind of folks. They're bad.
Listeners, if you have any relatives who are like militia adjacent, consider how bad you have to be today to be on the outs with a militia, and then project that back 250 years, 275.
They went ahead, and after the Battle of Yorktown, when it started to look pretty bad for some of the loyalist forces, they were like, I guess we'll desert, and ran off with the Chickamauga Cherokee, at this point having kind of a reputation as shitty folks, to the Appalachian Mountains. And they worked for a while with those Cherokee who were also against the revolutionaries at the time. They did in fact have a run-in at a battle called the Battle of Blue Licks, where they defeated
that was the only Revolutionary War battle that happened at a jazz club.
Yeah,
that's a fun fact.
I thought you were going to say the Battle of Blue Balls, and I was like, hey, didn't we already discuss this one for us?
The Battle of the House of Blues.
The Battle of Blue Licks is about the muskets you don't fire. They were successful in the Battle of Blue Licks. They defeated a regiment led by one Daniel Boone. So there you go. That's a guy you've heard of, probably.
Yeah, famous war guy.
Yeah. Eventually, they kidnapped, in addition to Susan Wood, another woman named Maria Davidson. These two were their wives as they lived a life on the run for a long time. They were with them.
And of course, wives is the word that a lot of these sources use. Of course, it's kidnapping someone does not make them
it's
your
complicated, kind of, because there is a point where they get away from them and then rejoin them. So I don't know what the fuck that, who knows?
Yeah,
what
I
the
mean,
whole
it's all
situation was.
that's always a complicated situation,
Yeah.
but kidnapping someone does not make them your wife or husband. I just want our
I think in
listeners to
certain states it does.
Well, yes, legally, some states are, as we call them, in legal circles, fucked.
I should also note, just in case these guys didn't have enough red flags, maybe you're like, I could do with one more red flag. Prior to the war, they did for a time work as slave overseers in North Carolina.
Oh no.
So there you go. Yep. There was actually a third woman. They eventually, I can't remember exactly at what point, sort of kidnapped and made their wife, a woman named Sally Saris, nicknamed Sally Rice. She was the daughter of a priest. So the war goes bad. They're with these Cherokees. One day, I think at a tavern or something, them being, white men, they were allowed to occasionally commune in the city. They catch wind. Oh shit, there is a raid on these Cherokees that we're running with coming soon. And rather than warn them, they said peace and ran off before the raid.
Jesus fucking Christ.
So again, pretty shitty folks. Survived for a long time by scavenging. For a time they tried to settle down and run a farm, but it doesn't. They changed their name. Their original last name, I should say, was Harper. After the war, they changed it to Harpe, an ingenious ploy.
No one will never know.
They kept the E on it too.
They did keep the E. They just dropped the R. Harper was apparently a common loyalist surname after the Revolutionary War. Not just for them, but in general. So I don't know. That's why they changed it. They seemed to try to go straight briefly, like I said, running a farm. But pretty soon it became clear they were just stealing cattle and stuff from nearby farms.
It's not the worst crime they
no, at that point it's almost funny.
Steal your daughter, steal some other cows.
So after that kind of fell through, they spent a good amount of time kind of living as outlaws. The real tipping point where they went full outlaw was they were at a bar one night when one of the people at the bar in a drunken fight stabbed, I believe it was Little Harpe, which he didn't like, and also Big Harpe didn't like. So they waited outside the bar for this guy to come out, and when he did, they dragged him into the forest and killed him, and sort of emptied out his carcass and put rocks in it and threw it in a river. And it was found pretty fast. So I guess they did a bad job. And a lot of people had seen this conflict where Little Harpe had got stabbed. So everyone was like, probably they did it. So they took to the road, ran out, lived a life on the run. They stole and murdered and burned and committed sex crimes, particularly targeting people who were pro-revolution, who they had an axe to grind with, so to speak. It is said that Big Harpe had a fondness for smacking people in the head with a tomahawk. But they also repeated their rocks in the torso disposal of bodies a number of times.
They were taxidermists. That was their business.
Yeah, so obviously having a pretty bad reputation at this point, starting to get a little bit more known. They had just basically a a long run at this point of killing and stealing and killing to sort of survive. They kind of had a whole range of places they were active. Tennessee, Kentucky, Illinois, and Mississippi, they all ran through. Let me find where I am. Eventually, obviously, they became well known enough that they were in Kentucky. A bounty was placed on their head of $300. At one point, a local innkeeper managed to notice them. This was shortly after they killed a man named John Langford. He noticed them off the wanted poster, pointed them out, and they were briefly arrested, but managed to escape.
Which hella easy to escape from prison in the 1700s.
Much easier than now, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Where posses were sent after them. This happened to them a few times. There were occasionally posses sent after them to try and find them. They murdered in retaliation the young son of one of the folks who ratted them out and directed the authorities toward them. So they've got, at this point, they're living on the lam, and they make their way up to Illinois. They find a place that's called Cave in Rock, which is off the Ohio River. And this was kind of where the pirate aspect comes in. There was a sort of river pirate named Samuel Mason. And they managed to join with his party. They do have a long resume of stealing and the like. They roll up with their wives, and at this point they have 3 kids. They sort of prey on the boats going up and down the river, stealing with the Mason gang. But it didn't last super long, because kind of like what happened during the war, the Mason gang found them extreme and appalling.
For reasons.
So the Cave in Rock is below a big bluff, a big cliff, and they had a habit of taking captors, strolling them to the top of the cliff above the rock, stripping them naked, and throwing them off. And after they did this a couple times, Samuel Mason was like, "Get the fuck out, you crazy motherfuckers." They continued to kill some folks. A various list of names, always with one of their tactics of usually they disembowel and throw in the river with rocks.
Did they get better at that aspect of it, or is it just?
I don't know. It seems like a lot of these people are confirmed or like very like there's names, so yeah, it seems like maybe they're still not great at it.
I feel like, what if they were like using like stupid, like what if they were dumb and were using like silver to like sink people, like instead of just some like cheap shitty rocks they found.
I got these pool noodles. I think these will keep them submerged.
They are not judicious with who they kill. They killed a little girl. They killed a young slave. They killed an entire family in their camp. They just kill who the fuck ever. There is no like qualms. In August of 1799, I should say, in Kentucky, one of Big Harpe's infant daughters was crying, and he bashed her against a tree because she wouldn't stop crying. And he said it was the only crime he ever felt remorse for. Good for you.
Did the daughter die?
She died, yes.
Oh, okay.
So they eventually came back round to a home of a man who owed them money from like some actual semi-legitimate work they did. They stayed there overnight. The guy didn't know about their wider reputation. And the following morning, while the his wife was making breakfast and he was gone. He basically her kid was crying, and one of the harps said he was good with kids and could make it be quiet. It was a baby. He murdered it. And
To be fair, it's quiet now.
Yeah, and when she saw what had happened, they went ahead and killed her too, and then burned down the house. I guess maybe the idea was to hide the evidence. But when the man, whose name is Moses Stiegel, came home, he was immediately like, well, clearly those two disreputable guys who were staying here one night have killed my family and burned down my home.
The two drifters coming through town. Yeah.
So there is another policy formed in response to this crime. And they give chase on the harps. And Wiley is injured. Micaiah suffers a couple of musket wounds during this chase. And one of them is pretty bad. He gets shot in the spine and is paralyzed, apparently from the waist down, which means that they do catch up with him. Wiley hooks it.
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah. So he can't really run, so they catch him. Wiley does not stick around. And after interrogating him a bit, figuring out some of his crimes, these guys are estimated to have killed at least 39 people, but it could have been as many as 50.
Jesus.
The guy, Moses Stiegel, allegedly slowly cuts off his head with a knife. So that's how Big Harp kind of meets his end. A very, very painful way to go. I would imagine he was also tortured a bit to get some information out of him prior to that. So he met a bad end, I would say. So he confessed at the time to 20 murders, but there is reason to believe that was an undercount, or possibly he was just talking about the people he personally killed and not counting about Little Harp's murders. It's sort of unsure. The place where he was killed, they stuck his head on a post at the crossroad, and it is still to this day known as Harp's Head Road. It's a place in Kentucky.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So
Did they
Wiley
use the same pole to put up the street sign?
Yeah. Wiley makes his way back to Cave and Rock and rejoins with the gang. Maybe they thought that Big Harp was the more violent or appalling of the two. Eventually, Mason, the gang leader the Mason gang, is harmed. He's shot in a conflict, but not captured. And Harp and another member of the gang, named Peter Alston, decide, well, Mason has an even bigger bounty on his head than either of the Harpe brothers ever had. So they're like, fuck this guy. We're going to try and turn him in and claim the bounty. It's not actually clear. Let me rephrase. It's not clear if Mason died from the wounds or if he was still alive when this happened, or if Harp just killed him after he was injured, but they brought his head in to try and claim the bounty. And sure enough, at first they were like, oh, okay, yep, that's definitely the guy who's we're looking for. But in a trick of fate, somebody also recognized Harp, who's now going by John Sutton. Yeah. I don't know if I said that. And a much better name change than his first name change. I
gotta drop the E now, I guess.
They were quickly captured. They were tried. Both of them were executed by hanging. And in the family tradition, Little Harp's head was also cut off and put on a stick as a warning to other outlaws. The Harpe women, who were during one of the Harp's arrests, they were arrested a couple times and escaped. I mentioned the one, but there was another occasion. Actually separated from them and re-met them in a different location they had talked about earlier. But after Big Harp died, they were permanently separated from the Harpe brothers. And as far as we can tell, they lived relatively normal lives from that point forward. One or two of them remarried, and they, lived with their families from before, or a couple lived on tenants on a plantation, and all these things, and had children after this point. Yeah. And one of them, Sally Rice, one of the people they had former wives, actually traveled to her new home in Illinois via the Cave-In Rock Ferry in a little twist of fate. Yeah. But yep, they're occasionally referenced in the Devil and Daniel Webster, like they're members of the jury of the damned, and sort of have a bit of a reputation. Sometimes they're called America's first serial killers, a name you also hear applied to like H.H. Holmes and people like this. Again, it's always this thing of like a lot of their murder was for financial gain, but some of it was just seemingly to do a murder. So, obviously a lot of serial killers we think of nowadays are motivated less by finances and more by the fact that they're just, want to kill some folks.
Right. And I mean, also, like, there's no way they were even still like America's first serial killers.
Maybe. No, I mean, it's probably not the worst thing, since they were like during the revolution, like immediately after the Revolutionary War, they were like, I guess we're going to start murdering people. So if you want to call America post-Revolutionary War, they were near the top.
Yeah. I guess the Pilgrim Slasher would have actually, now that I say that, I want to see that movie.
But that's it. Zach, after their heads were cut off, there is no more new developments.
Yeah. I can't believe that you would say all those terrible things.
That's
about
so strange. They talk so.
Truth is they were philanthropists.
All of the things that they did.
Yeah. You can say that that's the real history. The real history is that they grew up very privileged young boys, living by the beach, Orange County, North Carolina. Actually,
the OC.
Yeah, obviously.
Downs.
Carolina, here we come.
Yeah, it was, they would do the jugs, the
right back where we started from.
Yeah, they helped create a whole. But they
maybe one of them. I seem to recall like one of them was actually a harp, and the other one was adopted by the Harpe family. The father of which was a wealthy lawyer with big eyebrows.
Everybody was hot. Everybody was just so attractive. Except for, I am looking at a picture of the governor of Kentucky, and James Garrard. He his face is falling off his face.
You know what? The thing about Kentucky politicians, they never got more attractive.
They sure did it. Anyways, the Harpe Brothers, they used to be spelled Harpes, and people kept saying, "Oh, the Harpies. Oh, have you seen the Harpies?" And they were wealthy. They were living on the beach, but they were sick of being called Harpies, so they did drop the S. So that's where the name change really came in.
Sorry, I did just look up James Garrard, and you were not fucking kidding.
No, he looks like he's melting into himself. Like if eyebrows can melt into a chin, melting into a stomach.
This is just the tradition that Mitch McConnell is continuing of Kentucky politicians.
Oh no, compared to Mitch McConnell, James Garrard is like an absolute 10.
Yeah,
handsome.
Maybe it's the same
total
guy.
baddie.
He's just melted more over the years.
Yeah. So it's crazy that people say that they were like murdering people and stuff. They actually were the first people in the United States, the Harpe Brothers, to start a charity. They had a store similar to Walmart, right? You can get anything. You get a coonskin hat if you needed it, or you could get some penicillin. That's what they were all about.
Oh, wow.
Healthcare. Yeah. They were actually very big in the healthcare game. The Harpe Brothers were. And so they decided that they will travel around the world trying to help people. And I don't know, you guys are caught up on Mark Cuban's.
I could say no before you finish this.
Yeah, I was going to say, oh, honey. Oh, no.
Mark Cuban got a lot of ideas from the Harpe Brothers in terms of bringing healthcare to the people, affordable healthcare, right? So that's why they were like traveling around from Kentucky to Illinois. They weren't on the run from the law or from people trying to kill them. They were trying to save people, right? They would go around. Let's see here. They were called Big Harpe and Little Harpe because of the way they slept. Big Harpe was always on the outside. Big Harpe would protect Little Harpe, right?
Sure.
They got tired of people being mean to him, saying, "You guys are stupid."
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Wily was called Wily because he was a big fan of the antagonist from the Mega Man games, right?
He did change his name to it. Yeah. Sure. And also he had, you didn't talk about this. He had a scar on his arm. He would put his arm into a moonshine jar and then pretend that he could shoot stuff out of it.
Oh, okay.
And then it got stuck. And so when he went to bash the moonshine jar, he cut all the way like around his wrist. And it's a good thing that they were like really, really careful and smart with all their like medical procedures. They were very safe people, you know. They're famous for medicine in this late 18th
safety
century.
first was their slogan. Famously, the Harpe Brothers. Safety first. What you think of? They invented the term.
He did slash his wrist, but Big Harpe was able to, to tie it together using nothing but his underwear. Saved his life. Got completely naked, saved his brother's life.
Well, that seems like a fair trade. I would get naked to save my sibling's life. I'm not afraid to say it.
They also were.
I would get naked to save one of my siblings' lives. Yeah.
They were naked most of the time. They didn't really believe in clothes as much as you.
Sure, they sold all their clothes to get affordable health care to people.
Yeah. Well, and they gave their clothes to people in need. Like they literally gave their shirt off their back to the less.
And the underwear off their butt too.
And the underwear off their butt. They're just very thoughtful people. And they had been hearing this rumor that in Illinois there was a cave in a rock, is a big rock, and there was a cave in it. And some might call it cave in rock.
Sure.
I call it a rock with a cave in it. That's what they called it too. And so they went to this place and they were, they met this pirate and they started doing some pirate stuff, have some vitamin C, it cures scurvy. They were just helping people out, right? Like eat these oranges so your fucking gums stop bleeding. They loved it. It's what they lived for. And they were messing around with like medical potions one day. Just seeing what else they could create. And they accidentally created PCP, Angel's Dust.
Wow.
Yeah.
Another reason they might have been called the Harpe Brothers. The Harpe Brothers, Angel Dust. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. And if you're unfamiliar with the effects of Angel Dust, it makes you think you could fly. So they would take these people up to the top of the rocks and be like, hey, listen, like, fuck the Wright brothers. we're gonna learn how people can fly.
Who will be born one day.
And yeah, not yet.
Who will be born in about 100 years. Yes.
It's all about yeah, but also like the Hart brothers created the way for the Wright brothers because brothers do stuff in North Carolina, right? The Wright brothers never would have existed without the Hart brothers. This is very important. Because they were teaching.
No, that is on their license plates. Brothers do stuff in North Carolina. Yeah,
that's right. And if it weren't for the Wright brothers, the Hart brothers would be on every license plate out there. Now, first in medical Medicare. That's what it says. First in Medicare. So a few people did unfortunately die. But the Hart brothers didn't do. They actually, everybody signed contracts back then. Take this stick right in the mud that if you die, it's okay. You're not going to sue us.
Mud, the preferred way to write a lasting contract.
Yeah. Sometimes, they were different. They had already been through a lot. Like Little Harp's arm from the Mega Man incident is rough. So they're getting high every single night. And they know, they learn quickly that every time you do PCP to do it the next day and get as high, you have to do like way more of it, right? And eventually they tolerance. Eventually they just get tired of it. And the hardest thing about it is when these people would jump off the cliff and ultimately die at the base of this cave where everybody was living. They'd have to do something with the bodies. And when you're high as hell talking to God, you don't want to be moving bodies, right? So they were like, let's get out of here. Let's go somewhere else. And at some point they did go to, looks like they went to Ohio for a little bit. They didn't do much there. They just visited. They saw the sights. They go down to Tennessee.
It's the first on every tourist destination, Ohio.
Yeah,
Ohio.
They took a picture of Drew Carey's house. Yeah.
Let's go to Akron. That's what they wake up, they say, I want to check out Akron. And then they go to Kentucky because they wanted some fried chicken.
Yeah.
And that's, so they did that. And again, there was another accident, they didn't kill anybody's family, right? They heard there was a sick child. So they went to stay the night at this house, and it was an accident, but they did give the kid too much PCP. They gave the kid way too much PCP. Kid overdosed. The mom freaks out, and so they give her some penicillin. They didn't know what penicillin did. They thought
they still had it, which was a miracle. But
yeah. Well, they were just, they thought it was like a suppressant. They were just trying to calm the mom down. So they pumped the mom full of penicillin, but it turns out that she's very allergic, and then she dies. Yeah. So, whoopsies. But there's still a lot of people out there that need healing, right?
Yeah,
And,
I mean, you've accidentally killed 5 or 6 people, but you got to roll with the punches.
Got to roll with the punches. And also, I should point out that
nobody's perfect. Yeah.
The Hart brothers were also very religious, very, very Christian motivated, right? So they're out to save some souls. So anytime these accidents happen, they would just chalk it up to being closer to God, right? Hey, this kid just died, but also that kid is meeting Jesus right now, shaking hands with the big J man. So but
Gotta have a silver lining.
Oh yeah. That was also one of their moonshine recipes. Called silver lining. They put worms in it. Okay. Let's see.
It's like mezcal. It's smoky.
Yeah. Yeah, preferably mix it in with something else. So they're going around and they're in Kentucky, and this governor of Kentucky, James Gerard, is like, help me. My face won't, is this gravity what's happening to my looks? Something's very wrong with me. I will pay anybody $300 to get me these genius doctors, the Harpe Brothers.
Mhm.
So he sends out a crew like, hey, $300, get these guys to me. Maybe they'll have some Botox or something, and everything's going to be okay. Anyways, people start forming posses. They say like, hey, we're going to go get these Harpe Brothers, the philanthropist Christian Harpe Brothers, who I don't know why they have such a bad rap. They weren't murdering, they weren't raping and pillaging. They were just trying to help.
Manslaughtering.
Wow, that's very not progressive of you, Zach. Woman slaughtering is also
Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah, so they go around, and turns out that they also accidentally some of the penicillin they had went bad. They have like a semi-load full of, it's just a fucking, they've got wagons and wagons full of penicillin. Penicillin. Have some penicillin. But one night somebody gets into the penicillin and poisons it. So now they're handing out toxic penicillin to everybody. They're going around. Oh, and then also I will say this point, this is when one of their child is crying a lot, and he did kill his child. He beat his child.
Why is this still true?
That's still just true. Yeah, that happened.
Fucking hell.
But to be fair, his child would not stop crying. He tried everything. He gave the child PCP, nothing. Penicillin, nothing. Prayed for the kid, nothing. So he did have to kill it. He had to kill the child. Oh, and I forgot to mention what they do when these people are dying from mistakes, accidents, have you. They're putting rocks in their bodies, but they're not just like they're crystals, okay? They're putting healing crystals in their bodies. So what you do, you start at the top of the sternum, and you have to have, you can use like wood to like cut open the skin, but then you have to get like a knife to get through the bone. You take out the heart, you take out the stomach, pull out those intestines, right? And the intestines they would keep the intestines to use to like hang fruits where bears couldn't get it. Put a bunch of crystals in
classic use for intestines.
Once the crystals are in there, you sew it back up and you pray to God, and you throw them in. You couldn't use fresh water. You had to use salt water, hoping that the salt would help like mend the wounds, right? So they throw their bodies in there. They did.
How often did it work?
Well, not very often. I don't know that I can say that it worked one time even, but this is the 1700s. Times were different. And they would also, once they sewed the bodies back up with all the crystals in them, they would urinate all over it to clean the wounds of the sewing.
Oh yeah, it's like a jellyfish sting.
Yeah. Got to clean those wounds. But nobody ever came back to life from that procedure that they would do.
But they were like, we got to keep trying one of these days.
One of these days. And
it's a scientific method.
Pioneers of the medical field, for sure. And if they didn't do it, who's to say that the next Dr. Oz wouldn't come along and try this someday?
Well, he might.
Dr. Oz absolutely would try.
He probably still is. Yeah. So, very ahead of their time. So they're hopping around. They're trying to save these people. And then ultimately they end up in, I don't know, where's the place they went to after that? Oh, they also were like, all these women were just throwing themselves at him. Just all these women. Oh my God, you're a doctor. Oh, ooh, how much money do you make? Ooh, can you fix my wooden teeth? Ooh, and they were pimps, right? They were hot studs. Everybody wanted a piece of action, and so for them to settle down was kind of like hard because they were just swimming in pussy. They were just living it up. Okay. And yeah, so they eventually are talking trash to some people. They're like, hey, listen, we're the smartest men that ever existed. We're here to help you. And one of them gets real upset, and he forms a gang. He's like, hey, like, these guys are snake oil salesmen, even though they were penicillin givers. They weren't even charging for this product. They were just giving it away. So they get a crew together and they start chasing them. And when they're escaping, Little Harp gets shot in the back. And so Big Harp panics a little bit and gives him so much PCP. So at least when they caught him, he was very high. He did think that he was already talking to God. So when they cut his head off of his body, he didn't actually feel anything. So it wasn't as violent as people think. And Big Harp clearly upset, or Little Harp is the one that survived. That was Big Harp that died. Little Harp runs away, and eventually we've
all seen videos of someone's head slowly being cut off with a dull knife and then been like told, oh, they were on anesthetics, and we're like, oh, actually then it's fine.
That's fine. Yeah. They used, believe it or not, they used the handle of a butter knife to do it too. It really took a long time, but he was so high, he was just yacked out of his mind, so he was having a great time. Little Harp not so happy with this, finding out that Big Harp had his head cut off, when all they were just trying to help. It's so misunderstood what they were up to. So Little Harp goes and buys a gun, right? He's like, okay, I got to protect myself. And when he goes to get the gun, they're like, hey man, I'm not feeling well. Do you have anything that could help with my blood pressure? And they're like, yeah, man, I got all of, like, what kind of, I don't know what kind of medicines they have for blood pressure, but they had it. Okay. Rexulti, whatever rocks up, they had Rexulti. They had a lot of Sudafed. Somebody had too much mucus, right? So they got some
Pepto-Bismol in the mix.
Yeah. They're like, believe me, this is a miracle. Heartburn, indigestion, nausea, diarrhea, upset stomach, all those symptoms cured with this pink sauce that we made.
Oh, that's the worst way you could describe that.
Yeah, pink sauce.
Yeah,
it's thick. They would barbecue with it. They would barbecue with Pepto-Bismol.
Yeah, that's Kentucky style sauce.
It's Kentucky's, yeah, exactly. And the way that they would do it, it's kind of hard. You have to slowly smoke the ribs for a couple hours, and then you baste it with the Pepto, and then after smoking it longer, then you would also cut some, like, they'd save some, let it out in the sun, and then use it as a dry rub once it was like,
you know what they say in Kentucky, pink on the outside, brown on the inside. That's the way to go.
Maybe in your Harpe Brothers world, they loved that shit. So anyways, they're just out there curing everybody. And then somebody who owned the rights to ibuprofen. You guys are familiar with ibuprofen. They're like, hey, listen, like, your acetaminophen is like pretty close to our ibuprofen. And we're not cool with that. So they just fucking killed the other one. They just killed it. And it was a big misunderstanding because, and now we know that ibuprofen and acetaminophen are not the same. But back then they were like competitors, right? Like, think of it like a Walmart Target situation, right?
Competitors, yeah.
So
Yeah, competitor.
competitors, but you know, it was a hard time, so they decided to put the little harp's head on another stick, and they did name it Harp. What was the name of the street? Harp's Head.
Harp's Head Road.
They did that because they wanted to recognize all the hard work and medical advancements that those two had created, and all the you know, a few people did die, but they saved hundreds and hundreds of lives beyond that. So they wanted to recognize that by putting his head and memorializing it at the corner of a very busy intersection.
When you want to like memorialize somebody, you know, you put their head on a stick. Like you might remember that's what happened to like the, you know, the most important people in history, Abe Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
head on a stick. Yep.
Yeah.
That's why they only have the head on the penny.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's remembrance.
And I could say I can't wait till we get to honor Rudolph Giuliani, America's mayor.
That's right.
In much the same way.
Head on a stick.
And remember, I'm saying this to honor him.
Yeah. Great guy, that Rudy Giuliani.
Yep. The feds, if you're listening.
There'll actually be blood like running down his sides of his face, commemorating the incident where he was sweating.
Where he was sweating some sort of black liquid. Yeah.
We're gonna put it on. We're gonna put it on 2 sticks to commemorate 9/11.
And how he tried to become mayor for like life after that.
Yeah.
Steve, thank you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I love to come and, you know, clean the names of people who probably weren't that bad, you know. We don't know that they did any of this stuff, so I'm sure they were great people. I'm sure.
Well, listeners, before we move on, I just want to say thank you for listening, and thank you to our newest Patreon patron, Matt M. Thank you so much. You can pledge, you know, $1, $5 a month over at patreon.com
of Critical Role
/ the revisionist. Hey, if Wizards of the Coast is going to mess with the OGL, he's got to find new ways to do content.
Yeah, he's going to use our tabletop role-playing game that we've developed for our podcast.
Look, Matt Mercer, if you want to Trojan horse your way into this podcast, I wouldn't say no.
I wouldn't either, honestly. Give me like $20 a week. I'll be making more than I do right now, and we get way more numbers.
Also, you can find this podcast on Instagram. Just search revisionists_podcast, I think. And you can find our website at revisionistpodcast.com and click on the contact form to write us a letter or ask us a question. Tell us your favorite beef stew recipe. But Steve, you do shows all the time, all around. Do you have any coming up in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah. I mean, you can always check out Rotating Tap shows, Rotating Tap Comedy. If you like craft beer, go to those shows. It's about a 50-50 chance I'll be at those. I'll be headlining the Denver Comedy Lounge the awesome. 17th and 18th. So that's 5 shows. Lots of chances to see me in those 2 days.
Hell yeah.
People are in town.
Yeah. If you're out of town, you're shit out of luck.
That's right.
If you can't physically be in the place where this live show is happening, you're probably not going to see it.
Welcome back to the magic of live entertainment.
That's right.
Zach, you are also knee deep in another podcast.
I don't like that.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, I do the Movie Trap. It's a movie podcast. We pick a theme. Each of the hosts picks a movie that matches that theme. At the end, we vote on who had the best movie. whoever got the best movie picks the next theme. It's a gamified movie podcast.
Was that your Pacino voice? What?
It was just a voice, man. You don't have to
It's
think.
gamified.
Yeah, it's me, Al Pacino. Anyway, that brings us to the judgment phase of this podcast. My brain totally abandons me. And listeners, Steve had me early on when I'm like, oh, okay, maybe these people don't kill a bunch of people, and then they end up doing it and include some of the more gruesome deaths in it. But also, like, sometimes these questions come down to which world do I want to live in, and it's like, do I want to live in the world where people intentionally kill a bunch of people or where people accidentally kill a bunch of people?
In the name of medicine.
I mean, in any name, that's like still bad. But I think I'm going to have to give my vote to the alternate history with the caveat that I don't want people to have died.
Yeah, hell yeah.
It's a very complicated moral decision.
I mean, they all are at this point.
There's also something to be said for like sanitizing the names of these two horrible.
Yeah, that's also a thing I'm worried about. Look, I don't know. Guys.
They also invented sanitizer, hand sanitizer, which you would think came out in like the late 1990s, but no, they had it back then.
I would think it came out well before the late 1990s, personally.
Everyone's playing with slap bracelets. You need to sanitize your hands a bit.
I was alive in the late 1990s, and I feel like it was around before that.
When it came out, I remember when it came out, it was like the late 90s.
Are you trying to like gaslight Gen Z?
Yeah, wait.
They advertised it as waterless soap. Is how
I remember when Craisins came out, yeah, but like this, I'm not sure about because we still had like fucking hospitals before that.
Yeah.
There
was water. They marketed it as waterless soap, and that's what I remember.
That's a very 90s way to market that. But listeners, voting is now open.
I would have said extreme waterless soap.
Yeah, they actually repurposed all the Surge Cola or whatever.
Yeah, Jenga.
Jenga
was the first hand sanitizer, it turns out.
And aphrodisiac.
Yeah. The little balls in the Orbitz soft drink, that was actually hand sanitizer. How did we survive? Listeners, voting is now open on Patreon, and check out our Instagram poll sometime 2 weeks after this is released to get your final votes in. But Steve, Zach, thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Sure. Yep.
For everyone here at the Revisionists, we love you. I'm Brian Flynn.
That's conditional.
Yeah. Have a good time. I'm gonna fade out.